Alright, here's the hook. Right now, perhaps already sold, but I don't currently have any indication of that, there is a plausibly legitimate offer online selling access to a MAXAR Technologies military satellite. The offer is visible on a prominent Russian hacking forum. For obvious reasons, I won't actually be disclosing the name or address of the site in this video, which is also available not just on the darknet, but on the clearnet as well. Important distinction here, much of what can be categorized as online criminal activity, at least more serious instances of such activity, takes place on the dark web through special access points. However, the clearnet, a more visible, searchable, and regulated area of the internet, where things like YouTube and Facebook exist, can also be used for a nearly unbelievable amount of high-stakes activities if you know where to look. My source knows where to look, and thus today I bring you a plausible story about access to a military satellite being sold for just $15,000. Let's get into it. Who is MAXAR Technologies? Well, for starters, the satellite allegedly being sold online belongs to their company, obviously, but what do they actually do? According to their website about page, quote, MAXAR is a leading space technology and intelligence company. We unlock the promise of space to help governments and businesses solve problems on Earth and beyond, end quote. Reading on, one can discover that MAXAR self-asserts to have partnered with over 50 governments to monitor the Earth's surface and deliver broadband communication. They've existed for over 60 years and maintain custody of what's called a constellation of imaging satellites, which can scan the Earth's surface, gather high-resolution images, and provide sensitive data to their customers. All in all, MAXAR is an industry leader in proprietary, government-serving satellite technology. With a somewhat loose overview of what the company actually does, a more important question looms overhead. How do they relate to the current war? Truthfully, the impact that MAXAR satellites have had on modern conflict zones can't really even be overstated. It's a tremendous unknown where the only real claim would be that they are essential in multiple separate capacities, but on the public side, we do have an indication of just how integral the company has now become. Based on their surveillance and reporting of the war in Ukraine, example seen here from the Wall Street Journal, nearly every single major news syndicate, publication, or professional analyst in all of the West uses imagery from MAXAR Technologies in their process. Even further, as of February 2023, MAXAR had received a $192 million 5-year contract awarded by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, supplying imagery to U.S. allied countries. Quote, U.S. allies will have on-demand access to high-resolution satellite imagery and analytics, the company said. They will also get MAXAR's enhanced 3D immersive maps that combine satellite imagery with video to replicate real-world locations, end quote. In summary, MAXAR Technologies is an integral part of the U.S. military intelligence industry, let's call it, an integral part of the war in Ukraine, and a developing private sector authority on satellite surveillance. They provide operational support in a digital age with a multitude of contracts, including a separate $3.2 billion deal from the National Reconnaissance Office, supplying satellite imagery to the U.S. government for the next 10+ years. One last detail. As of November 2022, reported by the Universe Space Tech, MAXAR was beginning to supply mobile terminals, also referred to as tactical terminals, with, quote, a huge number of requests from government organizations, end quote. These terminals provide direct connectivity to their satellites and are being offered for a variety of strategic purposes to a lot of different third parties. So why does it matter? Well, for complete context, we need to look now at statements from Russia with regards to private sector satellites and rules of engagement. Also reported by Universe Space Tech just 1 month later, quote, Russia is ramping up efforts to take down Starlink internet over Ukraine. The story focuses on communication outages at the beginning of the war, but it doesn't stop there. From the Center for Strategic and International Studies, quote, Russia threatens to target commercial satellites. On October 27, a senior Russian foreign ministry official warned that commercial satellites may become a legitimate target for retaliation. Commercial space systems like SpaceX's Starlink communication satellites and MAXAR's fleet of imaging satellites are playing a highly visible and compelling role in Ukraine's resistance to the Russian invasion, end quote. That's fairly blunt, very straightforward, and indicates the current level of scrutiny that private sector satellite operators are under. See, Russia has hacked satellites before, most notably an American company called Viasat just slightly before the initial invasion. Knocking out enemy communication can have a wide range of strategic impacts, but the point here is to demonstrate that satellite hacking is, was, and will always be a legitimate danger. Information on this subject was sourced from multiple outlets, primary among them a publication called KaiserNet, which holds a conference on connected battlefields and digital infrastructure. Speaker David E. Tremper, the Director for Electronic Warfare, supporting the Platforms and Weapons Portfolio Manager in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisitions and Sustainment, which is an incredibly long job title, by the way, anyway, Speaker David E. Tremper discussed the implications of these new battle tactics, if you will, also calling out that private sector companies like Starlink are quicker on their feet when compared to government counterparts, showcasing the need for agility in a rapidly evolving threat landscape. And also, that's good to hear. Private companies being effective at their job is what we want in this economy. In essence, we know that Russia has and will continue to target commercial satellites. We know that MAXAR Technology now provides billions of dollars worth of services to dozens of United States allies, with a, quote, huge number of mobile terminal requests active at the moment. And we know that hacking satellites is very possible. How do we know that last bit? Well, it's actually pretty simple. For starters, the industry has incredibly lax standards on security. Reported by Via Satellite in 2019, written by Sean Waterman and referencing a statement by Harrison Caudill, the founder of Orbital Security Alliance. Quote, "The question everyone has been asking here, and they're asking it at other space industry conferences I've attended, is, what do we need to do to secure our space assets?" Later continuing, "The state of cybersecurity from a vendor perspective is pretty broken right now. There's a lot of money that's going into the sector, and it's following a traditional Silicon Valley venture capital model of, let's bet on a lot of different ideas and see what comes out best. When one fails, there's another one right behind it." End quote. To put it bluntly, a shotgun approach to satellite cybersecurity is not the same as an innovation push to develop a new smartphone application where you order food online. A huge number of improperly planned and executed ideas in this arena, only to then sink resources into the most successful version alone, works fine in particular industries, but for a multi-billion-dollar satellite surveillance industry where the consequences of a mistake are amplified exponentially, well, maybe there should be some actual standards. Regardless, the current state of the industry isn't even where the historical context stops, because when evaluating the current MAXAR Technologies predicament, we need to remember something else as well. It's happened before. See, as far back as 2008, hackers successfully interfered with not one, but two US government satellites, but they didn't just interfere. That's an incredibly sanitized way of putting it, likely meant to downplay the situation and the severity. They infiltrated and, according to Bloomberg Businessweek at the time, took full command and control. Thankfully, no catastrophic commands were issued during the few minutes where hackers appeared to have total command and control of the satellite, but we need to remember what that level of control actually means. For surveillance satellites, it means that they can take pictures of whatever they want. They can compromise security in a horrifying way if that satellite happens to be part of an active conflict zone, but they can also, if they acquire access to satellite thrusters, exert physical control. According to a piece written in the science section of Delta, the University of Delft, quote, "If the propellants are used up, the satellite can only leave space naturally through air resistance. In this case, the satellite would gradually lose energy and be pushed into lower altitudes and, ideally, will ultimately burn up." End quote. Well, in reference to our existing example, where hackers gained complete command and control of two US satellites in 2008, we need to understand a key factor. One of the satellites that was compromised, known as Terra AM-1, still had plenty of propellant at the time and was only decommissioned, thereby burning out the last of its propulsion capabilities in 2020, according to NASA. 12 years prior, with command and control level access, attackers could have theoretically dropped the satellite out of orbit on a whim, wherever they wanted to, given enough time, thereby destroying its capabilities entirely or even impacting Earth at a strategic location, since the trajectory could be modified by their propulsion mechanisms with the right triangulation and math, and would not actually be out of control with decreasing speed, as per our prior example. Projecting such a scenario forward means catastrophic consequences if a threat actor were to be so inclined and have such access. Let's look at one more relevant piece of context before connecting everything back together. Hacking a satellite, rather than some far-off Hollywood-style concept, which I know some people view it to be, is an active reality. And for absolute proof of this, irrefutable proof of this, look no further than Hack-A-Sat. Hack-A-Sat is basically a capture-the-flag style cybersecurity game where teams compete to accomplish a particular mission, such as hacking, controlling, or reprogramming an active satellite in this case, with both offensive and defensive components. It's a thrilling competition to watch, actually, but the message here is that satellites can absolutely be hacked, with a nearly insurmountable number of unique ways to do so given the complexity of the software involved. So far, Hack-A-Sat has had 3 separate competitions, leading to an eventual 4th round with a real satellite called Moonshot, I believe, in space that will be used for training purposes. They have, up till now, used software environment simulations, smaller scale hardware simulations, and other methods of conducting the games here on Earth, but soon there will be a gamified version of hacking a real satellite available as a team-based competition. Satellite hacks are real, they exist here and now, and they're not going anywhere. To really drive home my point right now, the first time that DEF CON actually tested US military technology, it was against an F-16. Up till that point, the US military had not allowed access to their actual systems, hardly at all. But in the very first year that they did, which occurred in 2019, the attacks were a complete success. A veritable treasure trove of security holes were discovered, including exploits, vulnerabilities, and even catastrophic shutdown options with a wide range of damaging effects beyond the aircraft itself. In a world where military technology is widely considered to be the pinnacle of cybersecurity in the minds of the general public, this was an interesting revelation. Why am I saying all this? Well, the answer is simple: context. Very recently, on a well-established Russian hacking forum, which I will not be naming publicly, a post was made by a user whose account seems to have been created initially in 2021, offering to sell access to a MAXAR Technologies imaging satellite for $15,000. Quote, "Hello community, good evening. Today I'm putting my access to satellite for sale. It is run by MAXAR Technologies and you will be able to see military and strategic position. Country eligible to use the satellite, USA. Price $15,000 USD. Escrow accepted, plus if you need proof, you can PM here." End quote. The use of escrow here and an offer to prove legitimacy lends credence to the idea that this may in fact be a real offering. Looking back through this user's prior postings, we can see that they have attempted to sell access to a slew of AT&T accounts. They have had some claimed level of access to a service called Apollo, which appears to have been legitimate, even an alleged 93,000 personal IDs from a Brazilian pharma infiltration, and the forum itself, without mincing words here at all, is absolutely an authentic place where these kinds of brokered deals actually do occur. Example, there are millions of Redline Stealer logs available on this forum, which are the primary method of stealing YouTube and Google accounts. The shadow economy I recently discussed in a prior video, well, some of the deals where the bigger accounts get bought and sold occur on forums just like this one, so I know that there is a level of legitimacy here that's not to be trifled with lightly. To even gain access, you need to be individually approved by an administrator, and I won't talk too deeply about what happened and how we eventually got in, but it wasn't exactly an easy process. There is a commonly used XMPP server that serves as a standard platform to initiate conversations about possible deals, and the forum was previously known under a different name, rebranded in and around 2017, 2018, but the point of it all is this. With additional context, knowing that satellites can be, have been, and will be hacked again, do we believe that this particular offering is legitimate? Is there access to a military satellite on sale right now, perhaps already sold? Is one of MAXAR Technologies' imaging platforms, their state-of-the-art, multinational, multi-billion-dollar imaging platforms, laid bare for the world by a Russian hacker and available for just $15,000? Or is it all a kind of hoax? If I were a betting man, based on context and verification, my gut tells me it's real. It's real, and we will never hear about it again as a result. But in the end, I really don't have a clue. That's the God's honest truth. And I will not be messaging anyone individually on that forum in order to check. For whatever government agent ends up watching this, because I know that a couple government people watch my content now, or at least have watched it in the past, I didn't cross any lines. I didn't download a single thing or look beyond my purview. I just looked at this story through an objective lens. With all of that additional context, what do all of you think? Is it real? Is it a hoax? Is it plausible, impossible, or even likely? Where do you fall and why? Let me know in the comment section. That's my excuse to spike engagement by getting you guys to talk in my comment section. Go ahead, have a discussion. For those curious, here are some of my final thoughts. NASA once estimated the odds of a falling satellite causing harm, in air quotes there, in a particular case, this was one instance, to be 1 in 2,467, which may seem incredibly low, but is it? To compare, here are some additional statistics, let's call them. Accidental gun deaths, according to Statista, present a 1 in 7,944 chance of death. The probability of a particular 2023 falling satellite causing harm by NASA's own standards was over 3 times higher than the probability of death by accidental gun discharge, and over 5 times as likely as death by electrocution, radiation, extreme temperatures, also known as exposure, and pressure combined. We are launching tens of thousands of new satellites now at increasing sizes and payloads, more every day. Private sector is getting on board. Huge companies are doing this on an industrial scale. And there is a well-documented emphasis on space as a current frontier of war. Hell, we know for a fact that this is an indisputable fact, that satellites with propellant reserves and movement capabilities have been compromised in the past with total command and control as far back as 2008, while modern security standards for the industry are discussed with concern by experts in the field due to recklessness of Silicon Valley investment tactics. My conclusions? The post has a very legitimate chance of being real, but even if it's not, it will be. Satellites will be compromised. Nation states will target private sector companies with malware, digital infiltration, etc. And we, as end users, will be carried down the river, if you will, by a current that we simply cannot control. My strategy, because yeah, it's a little bit doomerish and you can't do anything about it, and oh, whatever, people call me a fearmonger now, but I'm really not. I just talk about things that are interesting to me. My strategy, kick back and watch Hackasat, because I didn't even know that competition existed, and now I'm hooked on it. It's an incredible display of ingenuity, problem solving, and team dynamics, leaving me frankly astounded that the official competition videos here on YouTube only have a couple hundred views. It's really cool stuff. I mean, this should be more interesting than a lot of major sports out there, and I'll link a full playlist in the description down below for people who want to check it out, but yeah, that's my strategy. I found that baffling. That's a really interesting thing, and I don't understand why more people don't engage with it. That's it. If you want to support the channel, there are links down below. One of the main ones is a curated list of cybersecurity products, services, deals, and programs for individual people. Some partnered, some not, but the list will be an evolving project that seeks to benefit both the community and the channel wherever possible. It's a work in progress. Feedback is very much appreciated. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.